The salvage deal. The stench of burning circuits and spent fuel cells hung heavy in the air of Frontier Station's lower decks. Marcus Chen wiped his grease-stained hands on his coveralls, surveying his workshop with tired eyes. At 42, he was younger than most mechanics on the station, but 15 years of working with obsolete ships had aged him beyond his years. His hands bore the scars of countless repairs, and his dark hair was peppered with premature gray. "Another day, another credit," he muttered, kicking aside a rusted panel that had fallen from his current project. A cargo hauler that should have been scrapped decades ago. The workshop, nestled in the station's industrial sector, was a maze of half-finished repairs and salvaged parts. Marcus had inherited the place from his mentor 5 years ago, along with a mountain of debt and a reputation for fixing the unfixable. The comm unit on his workbench crackled to life. "Marcus, you awake down there?" The gravelly voice belonged to Rico, a salvage broker with more connections than morals. "What do you want, Rico?" Marcus didn't bother hiding his irritation. Last time Rico had called, Marcus ended up with a shipment of counterfeit reactor cores that nearly got his license revoked. "Got something special for you. Private auction tonight. Level 87, Storage Bay 12. Real hush-hush." Marcus snorted. "Your definition of special usually means trouble. This is different. Old Earth tech. Way old. The kind that makes collectors go crazy." Despite himself, Marcus felt a spark of interest. Old Earth technology was rare, often valuable, and usually fascinating. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just need someone who knows their way around ancient systems." "You in?" Marcus glanced at his empty credit account display. "I'll be there." The auction was exactly as shady as Marcus expected. A dozen buyers huddled in the dimly lit storage bay, most wearing hoods or masks. The air hummed with tension and the soft whir of concealed weapons. Rico stood near a large tarp-covered object, his cybernetic eye gleaming in the low light. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rico announced, "what we have here is a genuine piece of history." He pulled away the tarp with a flourish, revealing a ship unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It was smaller than most vessels, maybe 30 meters long, with a design that seemed to flow rather than follow conventional aerodynamics. The hull was a dark, metallic substance that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, shifting slightly when viewed from different angles. "Starting bid at 50,000 credits," Rico declared. The other buyers murmured, some backing away. Marcus stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't explain. The symbols weren't any language he recognized, yet they seemed familiar somehow. 60,000, someone called out. Marcus touched the hull, and a shock ran through his fingers. Not electrical, but something else. Something that made his skin tingle and his mind race with possibilities. 70,000, he heard himself say, knowing it would wipe out his savings, and then some. The bidding continued, but Marcus barely heard it. His hand remained on the hull, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath the surface. This wasn't just old technology. It was something else entirely. Sold to Marcus Chen for 120,000 credits. Reality crashed back. Marcus stared at Rico in horror. "Wait, what?" Rico grinned. "Congratulations, my friend. She's all yours." 3 weeks later, Marcus was beginning to think he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. The ship sat in his workshop, defying every attempt to understand its systems. The exterior was impenetrable to his scanning equipment, and the symbols continued their subtle dance across the hull. He'd managed to find what appeared to be an access hatch, but it refused to open despite his best efforts. The few components he could identify seemed to operate on principles that violated known physics. Power readings fluctuated wildly, sometimes showing impossible negative values. "What are you?" Marcus asked the ship for the 100th time, running his hand along its smooth surface. To his shock, the symbols beneath his fingers suddenly glowed with a soft blue light. A seam appeared in the hull, and the access hatch slid open with a whisper of displaced air. Marcus grabbed a flashlight and peered inside. The interior was as alien as the exterior, with curved walls that seemed to pulse with inner light. Control surfaces were smooth and featureless, yet somehow he knew they were controls. He climbed inside, feeling the temperature drop noticeably. The air had a strange metallic taste, and his movements felt slightly off, as if gravity itself was different within the ship. The main control room was circular, with a central chair surrounded by translucent panels. As Marcus approached, the panels flickered to life, displaying information in the same shifting symbols that covered the hull. "Okay," he breathed. "Let's see what you can do." He sat in the chair and immediately felt a connection form. Not physical, but mental. Information flowed into his mind. Not words or images, but pure understanding. The ship was old, older than human civilization. It had traveled not just through space, but through time itself. A noise from outside broke his concentration. Marcus climbed out of the ship to find 3 figures in black uniforms standing in his workshop. They wore no insignia, but their bearings screamed authority. "Marcus Chen," the leader asked, her voice cold and professional. "Who's asking?" "Temporal Security Division. This vessel is classified property. You'll need to come with us." Marcus felt the ship's presence in his mind, warning him. These people weren't here to talk. "I don't think so," he said, backing toward the ship. The agents drew weapons, sleek devices that hummed with contained energy. "Sir, step away from the vessel." Marcus touched the hull, and the ship responded. A wave of force erupted outward, knocking the agents off their feet. The workshop's lights flickered and died, replaced by the soft blue glow emanating from the ship. "Warning," a voice spoke in Marcus's mind. "Temporal displacement imminent." "What does that mean?" Marcus shouted, but he already knew. The ship was about to jump through time, and it was taking him with it. The workshop began to blur around him, reality itself seeming to stretch and twist. The agents scrambled to their feet, firing their weapons, but the energy beams curved impossibly around the ship. Marcus dove back inside as the world outside became a kaleidoscope of fractured moments. Past, present, and future collided in a symphony of chaos. The last thing he heard before reality snapped was the lead agent screaming into her communicator. "The Emperor's ship has activated. Initiate Protocol Omega." Then everything went white, and Marcus Chen, failed mechanic and accidental time traveler, hurtled into the unknown aboard a ship that should not exist. The workshop was gone. In its place stretched an endless void filled with streams of light and shadow. Marcus gripped the control chair as the ship navigated the temporal currents with a grace that defied comprehension. Ahead, a destination beckoned, a point in time where answers waited, along with dangers he couldn't yet imagine. The ship of the Time Emperor had chosen its new pilot, and the greatest adventure in human history was about to begin. As the temporal jump stabilized, Marcus felt the ship's systems fully integrate with his consciousness. He understood now why the vessel had remained hidden for so long, why it had chosen him, and why those agents were so desperate to reclaim it. This wasn't just a ship. It was a key to humanity's future, a weapon in a war that spanned millennia, and a responsibility that would change everything Marcus thought he knew about the universe. The void began to resolve into recognizable space-time, and Marcus prepared himself for whatever lay ahead. The Time Emperor's ship had awakened, and with it, the fate of humanity across all of time hung in the balance. Temporal awakening. The temporal currents released their grip, and reality snapped back into focus with jarring suddenness. Marcus found himself hovering above a city that defied imagination. Towering spires of crystalline material reached toward a sky painted with 3 suns, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light. Flying vehicles moved in precise formations between the buildings, while massive orbital platforms cast geometric shadows across the urban landscape. When are we?" Marcus whispered, his hands instinctively moving across the control surfaces. The ship responded to his thoughts, displaying information that his mind somehow translated into understanding. temporal coordinates. Earth datum plus 3,742 years. The ship's voice resonated in his mind. Location, New Terra Prime, capital of the United Human Collective. Marcus stared at the impossible vista before him. Humanity had not only survived but thrived, spreading across the stars and mastering technologies that bordered on magic. Yet something felt wrong. The city below, for all its grandeur, had an oppressive quality. The flight patterns were too rigid, the architecture too uniform. A proximity alert flashed across his consciousness. 3 sleek vessels materialized around him, their hulls shifting between solid matter and energy fields. Unidentified temporal vessel, you are in violation of collective temporal accords. Power down and prepare for inspection. The voice was human but carried an artificial undertone that made Marcus's skin crawl. He could feel the ship's systems analyzing the threat, calculating escape vectors through both space and time. I don't suppose we can talk about this, Marcus transmitted, buying time while the ship prepared for another jump. Negative. Temporal travel is restricted to authorized collective vessels only. Your craft matches no known configuration. Compliance is mandatory. The lead vessel extended what appeared to be grappling fields, reaching toward Marcus's ship with tendrils of coherent energy. The Time Emperor's vessel responded instantly, its hull rippling with defensive patterns that deflected the fields. Warning shot detected. The ship informed him as one of the escort vessels fired a beam of compressed time, aging a section of space near his port side by several million years in an instant. Time to leave, Marcus decided, letting the ship guide his actions. His fingers danced across controls he barely understood, initiating an emergency temporal shift. Reality fractured again, but this time Marcus felt pursued. The collective vessels attempted to follow, their own temporal drives creating turbulence in the time stream. The ship showed him the danger, temporal wake patterns that could tear apart the fabric of causality if they collided. Evasive pattern omega, the ship suggested, and Marcus agreed without hesitation. They dove through a sequence of micro-jumps, appearing and disappearing across different eras in rapid succession. Medieval Earth, where startled peasants pointed at the sky. The first Mars colony, its domed city still under construction. A space battle between unknown alien races, energy weapons lighting up the void. Each jump lasted only seconds, but the strain was building. Marcus could feel the ship's systems heating up, the temporal core approaching critical levels. "We need somewhere to hide," he said, gritting his teeth against the disorientation of rapid time travel. Sanctuary protocol activated, initiating jump to temporal safe zone. The next transition felt different, smoother yet more profound. When reality stabilized, Marcus found himself in what appeared to be a vast hangar, filled with ships of various designs and eras. The space seemed to exist outside normal time, a pocket dimension where the usual rules didn't apply. A figure approached the ship, humanoid but clearly augmented with advanced cybernetics. Its eyes glowed with inner light, and its movements had the fluid grace of perfect mechanical precision. "Welcome to Haven Station," the figure announced as Marcus cautiously emerged from the ship. "I am Administrator Kara. Your arrival was unexpected but not unwelcome." Marcus studied his surroundings, noting beings of various species and technological levels moving among the ships. What is this place? A refuge for temporal refugees, those who have fallen between the cracks of time. Your vessel triggered our detection systems. It bears the signature of the Time Emperor, though its design is unfamiliar. Time Emperor? Marcus asked, though the name resonated with something deep in the ship's memory banks. Kara's expression turned grave. The architect of temporal technology, the first being to truly master time travel. He ruled an empire that spanned past and future until he vanished, leaving only legends and artifacts behind. The ship pulsed in Marcus's mind, confirming the connection. He was beginning to understand. This vessel wasn't just one of the Emperor's fleet. It was something special, perhaps unique. The collective has been searching for the Emperor's technology for centuries, Kyra continued. They believe it holds the key to absolute temporal dominion. If they knew what you possessed. They already know, Marcus said. They were at my workshop before the first jump. Kyra's cybernetic eyes widened. Then you've already altered the timeline. The collective will stop at nothing to acquire that ship. Haven Station's neutrality may not protect you for long. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the hangar. Holographic displays showed multiple temporal signatures converging on their location. Collective Enforcement Fleet, Kyra announced. They found us. Marcus felt the ship's urgency. It was already calculating escape routes, but something else was happening. Deep within its core systems, ancient protocols were activating. The ship wants to show me something, Marcus said, moving back toward the vessel. Wait, Kyra called out. The Emperor's technology is dangerous. It changes those who use it. But Marcus was already inside, the connection with the ship deeper than ever. Information flooded his mind. The true history of the Time Emperor, the nature of temporal technology, and humanity's role in a cosmic drama that spanned eternity. The Emperor hadn't vanished. He had hidden himself and his most precious creation, this ship, in the past, waiting for the right moment and the right person to continue his work. Temporal core synchronization complete, the ship announced. Emperor's protocol activated. Pilot authorization confirmed. Marcus understood now. The ship hadn't chosen him randomly. Somewhere in his genetic code, in the quantum patterns of his consciousness, was a key the Emperor had planted long ago. Outside, the temporal nexus, Kyra breathed from her position at the auxiliary console. I thought it was just a legend. The Emperor built it, Marcus explained, information flowing from the ship into his consciousness, a place where all possibilities meet. From here, we can access any point in any timeline. The refugee fleet spread out, their diverse ships forming a protective formation around the Emperor's vessel. Marcus could sense their mixture of awe and apprehension. They had followed him this far on faith, but the true test was yet to come. A disturbance in the temporal field announced the arrival of the collective's main fleet. Hundreds of advanced warships materialized, their weapon systems already primed for combat. Marcus Chen, a voice boomed across all frequencies. By order of the Temporal High Council, you are commanded to surrender the Emperor's vessel and submit to immediate memory reconstruction. Marcus recognized the speaker, Supreme Temporal Admiral Vesse, commander of the collective's enforcement arm. The ship's databases revealed Vesse as a ruthless leader who had personally overseen the suppression of 17 temporal rebellions. Admiral Vesse, Marcus replied, allowing the ship to broadcast his voice across the nexus. I have a counter-proposal. Stand down your fleet, and let's discuss the future of temporal technology like civilized beings. Vosse's laugh was cold and metallic. There is nothing to discuss. The collective maintains order across all timelines. Your anarchist vision would plunge humanity into temporal chaos. Order through oppression isn't order at all, Marcus countered. It's fear masquerading as stability. The ship suddenly pulsed with warning, detecting massive temporal weapon charging. Classification: Reality Erasure Cannon. Marcus's blood ran cold. The collective was preparing to use their ultimate weapon, a device capable of erasing entire timelines from existence. They're going to delete us from history, Kyra said, her cybernetic systems calculating the weapon's power. Not just kill us, but make it so we never existed at all. The refugee fleet began to panic, some ships attempting to flee. But Marcus felt strangely calm. The ship was showing him something, a possibility hidden within the Nexus itself. Admiral Vesse, he called out, before you fire, there's something you should know about the Emperor's true plan. No more delays, Vesse snarled. Fire the Erasure Cannon. A beam of impossible energy lanced toward them, reality itself warping around its passage. But Marcus was ready. At his command, the Emperor's ship activated its ultimate function. The vessel transformed. its hull expanding and reconfiguring into a structure that encompassed the entire nexus point. Marcus felt his consciousness merge completely with the ship, becoming one with its systems, its purpose, its destiny. The erasure beam struck, but instead of destroying them, it was absorbed into the transformed ship. The energy flowed through temporal conduits, redirected and amplified into something new. "What's happening?" Kyra asked, watching in amazement as the ship continued to change. "The Emperor's final protocol," Marcus replied, his voice resonating with power. "This ship was never just a vessel. It's a temporal seed, designed to grow into something much greater." The structure expanded further, creating a vast network that touched every timeline simultaneously. Through it, Marcus could see all of history, all possible futures, laid out like an infinite tapestry. The collective fleet opened fire with conventional weapons, but their attacks passed harmlessly through the temporal construct. Marcus had transcended physical vulnerability. "Admiral Voss," he spoke again, his voice now carrying across all timelines, witnessed the birth of the temporal commons. The construct pulsed, and streams of energy flowed outward, touching every point in space-time. Wherever they went, temporal technology began to democratize. Knowledge of time travel, previously hoarded by the collective, became freely available to all humanity. On Earth, in the 21st century, scientists suddenly understood principles they had only theorized about. On colony worlds in the far future, oppressed populations gained the means to chart their own temporal destinies. Across all of history, the monopoly on time was broken. "No," Voss screamed, watching his empire crumble. "You're destroying everything we've built." "I'm setting it free," Marcus corrected. The Emperor didn't want to rule time. He wanted to share it. The transformation reached its climax. The construct solidified into a permanent structure, a temporal hub accessible from any point in history. Through it, anyone could learn about time travel, access other eras, or simply observe the flow of history. But there was a price. Marcus felt himself beginning to merge permanently with the construct. To maintain the temporal commons, someone had to become its guardian, its living consciousness. "Marcus," Kyra called out, realizing what was happening. "You don't have to do this. There must be another way." He smiled, feeling at peace with his choice. "This is why the ship chose me. Not to be another emperor, but to ensure there would never be another temporal tyrant again." The collective fleet, realizing their weapons were useless, began to retreat. Some captains, inspired by what they were witnessing, defected on the spot, joining the growing community of free temporal travelers. Admiral Voss made one final attempt, launching himself in an escape pod directly at the construct's core. But the temporal commons simply absorbed him, his consciousness becoming part of its vast archive. Not erased, but preserved as a reminder of what unchecked power could become. As the transformation completed, Marcus felt his individual identity expanding into something greater. He was still himself, but also something more. The living heart of humanity's temporal freedom. "The Commons is now active," he announced to all who could hear. "Time belongs to everyone. Use it wisely." Across the timelines, changes rippled outward. Oppressive regimes fell as their subjects gained the ability to move through time. Lost knowledge was recovered. Extinct species were preserved. Humanity began to truly explore its potential across all of history. But it wasn't chaos. The Commons included safeguards. Ethical guidelines evolved from the collective wisdom of all timeline. People could explore and learn, but not dominate or destroy. Kyra approached the core of the construct where Marcus's essence now resided. "Will we see you again?" "I'm always here," he replied. His voice warmed despite its cosmic nature. "In every moment, every possibility, the Emperor's dream is realized. Humanity is free to choose its own destiny across all of time." The refugee fleet, now the first citizens of the temporal commons, dispersed to spread the news across history. Some returned to their original times, others chose to explore new eras. All carried the message of temporal freedom. In his workshop on Frontier Station, a younger Marcus Chen looked up from his work as reality shifted subtly around him. He didn't know it yet, but his future had just changed. One day, he would find a mysterious ship at an auction, beginning a journey that would transform the very nature of time itself. The Time Emperor, watching from his hidden sanctuary outside of time, smiled. His plan had worked perfectly. By hiding his greatest creation in the past and choosing an humble mechanic as his heir, he had ensured that temporal power would never again be concentrated in the hands of a few. Marcus Chen had become something unprecedented, not a ruler of time, but its guardian and liberator. Through his sacrifice, humanity gained the freedom to explore all possible futures, to learn from all possible pasts, and to create a destiny unlimited by the constraints of linear time. The age of temporal empires was over. The age of temporal democracy had begun. And somewhere in the vast expanse of possibility, the story continued, not as a single narrative, but as an infinite tapestry of human potential, forever growing, forever free.